This got me in so much trouble in Washington. I carried the Obamacare repeal. And I was told by leadership, dude, you can't carry the Obamacare repeal. And I'm like, you mean the one that you and everybody else with an R beside their name voted for last year? And they're like, yeah, because now we have both houses in the White House. So oh, wait, hang on. I can't carry it because it might pass? Yes. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Wow. So this was kabuki theater to placate a base that they think that they look down their noses at and think is ignorant. And then when we have the ability to get it done, then they go, you can't do that. Why not? Because what then? And the first day I was in the state senate, I cannot remember the issue, but the majority leader's like, well, what do we do about this? And I said, new guy, what about this? And he goes, they'll say we're racist. And I said, dude, they're already saying we're racist. Dude, what if we just do the right thing and trust that African Americans and Caucasian Americans and all Americans go, son of a gun, those guys did the right thing. You know? So like, and that was another thing we talked about off air. Like, I cared too much what people said, but it never was able to change sort of what I was going to do. You guys are amazing because I've read the crap they say about you, and that's what happens to Republicans. They get cowed into sort of submitting.
Well, that's the point I was making about the Ahmaud Arbery thing. You know, that you could say on the question of the law as the judge ordered the jury, they made the right call. But when you actually break it down and look at the full story, I mean, a gun had been stolen from a car. A gun had been stolen. And there had been a string of robberies. The neighbors were scared. They were setting up cameras everywhere. The police went door to door and said, here's a picture of the guy we're looking for. Someone sees the guy running down the street. Surveillance footage caught him in the building the night before. And the guys are like, let's stop him and get the cops. So they called the police, but the police said, don't pursue. They pursued anyway. Dude, they flanked him to the front. He runs after him. Guy drives behind him filming. He goes to the right around the truck and then grabs one of the McMichael's shotgun. They fight for it. It goes off. He gets shot in the chest. He dies. Now we're in the case where the narrative from the left was he was just jogging. He's just jogging, what, like 20 miles from his own house? No. But why did the McMichaels grab a gun and go after him? Well, because a gun had been stolen. And I'm not saying it was the right thing. But the judge basically said, if the law is to be read that you need to witness the crime, then they stopped him illegally, which is a felony. And because he died in the struggle, it's felony murder.
Yeah, right. The felony would be,
I think, false imprisonment.
False imprisonment, kidnapping, essentially.
Yeah, but the law actually states you have a right to stop someone if you suspect a felony.
Well, here's the story to me, right, as a guy who just got sort of schooled on this. The story to me is that I consider myself to be marginally well-read, and half the stuff you said I'd never heard.
That's wild.
Right. I mean, well, you see where I'm going with this, Tim? Right,
shout out to legalinsurrection.com and Law of Self-Defense, Andrew Branca, because they educated me
on this. I trained on self-defense, on self-defense law and circumstances under it. We had a long phone call in the snow on the way up here about this dude's like, well, if I shoot the intruder with number 4 versus double-out buck, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. You shot him. It's deadly force anyway, so don't overthink this.
We've talked a lot about that too. But you know, back to the main point, it's that these Republicans, the ones you mentioned, that they're like, oh, we can't actually repeal Obamacare because then we have no political ammo.
Well, they took like 3 or 4 votes where they all voted for it. And then I had to do a discharge petition, which is where you try to get a number of members to sign a bill to get a vote on it on the floor because the speaker won't bring it, who was a Republican.
Wow.
And I got like 26 signatures on the discharge petition. People wouldn't even sign the document to let it come to a vote, because they didn't want to be held accountable. And I'm like, it took me less than 24 hours to go, this place is broken beyond my ability to repair it.
This is why I went back to the Ahmaud Arbery thing. The Fox News personalities and the conservatives who are unwilling to actually look into it and call it out because they're scared of being called racist or whatever. Yo, I got called racist when I said all of that stuff. And I'm like, I literally don't care that you call me that. That word has zero meaning to me or anybody else at this point.
It's what's worse that you could call somebody in 2022?
I don't think you call them anything, to be honest.
But again, that's the point though. So I did a radio show for a while, and the last few segments were more or less on philosophy. And the rhetorical question was, if you could choose between freedom and truth, which would you choose? And my answer is, you always choose truth because truth will beget freedom.
Exactly.
Truth
and
the truth is freaking dead.
Yeah.
They get to define truth, right? And that's exilseries.com. Again, I'm shameless plug. Is like, the people know what's going on. People demand it's done differently.
You mentioned Republicans saying we can't pass that. They would call us racist. Do you have
that was that was something in the state senate. I can't even remember what it was.
Oh, okay.
But I remember the majority leader going there. Well, they're going to say such and such, and I'm like, dude, they're already saying it.
Yeah,
they're saying worse than that, dude. But come on, that I hear you saying that was during the state senate, but I have to imagine that's everywhere for Republicans.
So Winsome Sears is an African American woman elected lieutenant governor of Virginia, and there was a story in a legitimate media outlet about how that proved how racist Republicans were. Like the mental gymnastics you have to do to get to that point, right?
I feel that it requires like a level of spiritual toughness to navigate criticism like this in the internet age, the comments and the news articles. So like these people can't do it. Obviously, that they tried and failed. They're older. They're not used to the internet like some young people are. I see them as a vulnerability, having individuals there that can get their morale shattered or smashed by the news media. So what do you think about just eradicating the concept of a bunch of people going to the Capitol building to vote 700 and dispersing the workload to the American people?
So you're talking about an actual democracy, a direct democracy.
Or a republic that like we create like a smart contract that our 700,000 people can vote to decide if that contract's going to toggle yes or no for certain things. So we still have some sort of representative.
So it still requires that more people listen to Tim Pool's podcast. I mean, what I mean by that is, I'm serious though. But if without truth, without a competently informed, intelligent, discerning electorate, you're still going to get bad policy.
But so this is I disagree with Ian on this one, but it is a really interesting thought. The idea is instead of doing a direct democracy, you do a direct republic. You still have districts, you still have electoral college, but instead of having a representative, it breaks down like an electoral vote within the state. So it doesn't matter if you have 750,000 people in one area and you have 500,000 in another. It's still weighted. You know what I mean?
Well, so that you get your Senate, the effect thereof.
But it's hybridized. I don't agree with it. I personally think it's good to have reps there in person doing their jobs. But I do think it's an interesting idea, and I do think that as technology changes and times change, we do need to be addressing how this is going to affect legislation.
So if this is like, you want to fix DC, term limits for staffers.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right? Not because there is a bidding war when an influential member retires over their chief of staff. And that guy, I mean, I grew up in the same neighborhood as a young man, he's older than me, who'd been chief of staff for 4 or 5 members. Great guy, like not disparaging him personally, but he had a floor pass, right? I mean, like this guy's on the floor of the House, more influential by far than a lot of people who've stood for election by 800,000 of their constituents. So term limits for staffers. Once you hit GS-15 in an agency or what have you, you can be there this long and you got to move because that's where the secret power is. And the second thing is, instead of allowing party leadership, because again, political parties are the poison that will destroy the mix, to determine committee assignments, let people draw lots for committee assignments. Maybe you get, if there's 15 committees, maybe you get 15 sheets of paper to put in one bucket and 14 and 13 and 12, because that's how they bribe you. If you want to be on this committee, Ian, Seamus, then you have to promise to vote for the Farm Bill or not vote for marijuana reform or what have you. And so in giving the leadership in both the majority and minority the power to appoint committees, to provide committee assignments, you've just given them the ability to blackmail every single member.
What if you promise it and then don't follow through with your promise?
Then you're done.
Like they just won't work with you. They'll all ignore you in Congress.
There's always retribution for any time that you betray the hierarchy. It's invisible or it's visible.
What would you think?
Because if they didn't make you pay,
everyone would disobey. Yeah.
What would you think about removing party affiliation from ballots?
I don't have a problem with it. Again, I ran as a Republican because it more closely jibed with my value set, but my value set is classical liberalism.
Right.
Right. I was listening to a podcast that you were talking to somebody about masking and isolating in order to preserve the most vulnerable. And my immediate knee-jerk was, what is the responsibility of the most vulnerable to protect the most vulnerable? And my immediate knee-jerk was, what's the responsibility of the most vulnerable to protect themselves?
Amen.
Yeah,
right. And I'm not saying like be inconsiderate of your grandma. In fact, you should be really considerate of your grandma. But grandma's primary responsibility is grandma. Right? Government starts as the pinpoint center of a circle and radiates outward from there. So the essence of government is you. Then your family, then your neighbors, then...
Yeah. The reason I bring up the party affiliation thing is that people will go into the ballot and they'll just be Democrat. They don't know.
Or Republican.
Right.
Yeah, it's ignorant on both ends.
So imagine what would happen if people just go in and there's no party affiliation to vote for. It's just names. So, we've talked about this before, and one response is people would just vote for whoever's on the top of the list. And then everyone would fight. People would change their name to like Aaron Aardvark.
Yeah, well, or people would just vote for somebody if their name sounded like they were from the same ethnic background or something like that. Like, oh, that's an Irish name, or oh, that's an Asian name, or whatever it is.
Someone will change their name to Charizard, and a bunch of people will vote. Guy's going to change his name to Crash Lightning, and everyone will be like, oh,
D's
I'm
nuts.
voting for Crash. I'm voting for D's Nuts.
D's Nuts did
People would,
pretty well.
They would
like,
literally, that would happen.
No, D's Nuts
know.
actually did well on a ballot. Someone like put it on the ballot.
I'm not surprised.
It was like a middle school kid, and he pulled it off.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow. But so there was a story in I think it was New Hampshire of a trans anarchist Satanist who ran as a Republican in the primary for sheriff and ended up winning.
What?
But I think it was like a Democrat sheriff ended up winning or something like that. But a bunch of Republicans freaked out, like, I voted for this person. It's like, well, yeah, you checked the box.
Joke's on you, dummy.
Don't blame the person you voted for.
If you voted for voting records, so you didn't know the name of the person, you didn't know what party it was, but you just got to see or a bio. You voted for a bio or something.
Yeah, right. Then the devil becomes who writes the bio. Yeah. I mean, I've checked my own Wikipedia page.
And
did you?
Exactly.
Like under oath. Those are like under oath bios, like legal, verified, and if you lie on your bio there, you'll go to prison of thing.
I think we should let the same people who draft the PolitiFact do that.
Like voting for a name or a party is so insane.
Look at what the media does, how they frame things to make them negative. It'll be like, Ian will run into a burning building to save a bunch of puppies who are trapped on the top floor. They'll show a picture of Ian standing in the fire holding the puppies, and it'll be like, crazed man holds puppies above flame. And you're like, well, that's technically true, but he was escaping the fire through the window. They'll just frame it however they want. So you get, who's going to write the bio? Who's going to write about the people?
It's just like one of my favorite examples of that occurred during the Rittenhouse case when I believe it was Greuskritz took the stand. And what they were reporting on it, I can't remember which outlet it was, but he had brought a gun of his own to try to protect himself from Rittenhouse, even though what he had testified on the stand was that he pulled a gun on Kyle before getting shot.
And he lied. And MSNBC, they were like, he testified that Rittenhouse pulled the weapon on him. And then it was like, actually, he testified he pulled the gun on Rittenhouse, and then Rittenhouse pointed the weapon. So it's just like the media just chooses to say whatever they want, because I don't think it's necessarily Times v. Sullivan that gives them this power. The fact is, lawsuits are very hard, and they take forever. And so look at it this way. They say often for a lot of cops, process is the punishment. New York City is notorious for this. The cops know they can illegally arrest you, but nothing will ever be done about it. So there's nothing to worry about. So a good example is there was a photographer in New York by the name of Alex Arbuckle. He was standing on the sidewalk taking pictures of cops during an Occupy protest. He actually had gone down there to document it from the police's side of things because he felt the media was only covering the protest perspective. The police arrested him, filed a false police report, and claimed that he was obstructing a roadway. The officer who actually arrested him wasn't the officer who claimed to have arrested him and who signed the arrest report. And the officer who wrote who signed the arrest report wrote a fake account of what happened. Fortunately, I had been filming. And the National Lawyers Guild, I'm not big fans of them, but they got a hold of the footage, which proved the police lied. The police officer went on the stand and lied under oath. Not a single bad thing happened to any of these officers. But the cops know if you're in their way, they can arrest you and you will go to jail, even if for only a day, because that is the punishment for defying them. They know it can destroy your life. They know you can get fired from your job if you can't show up. If they arrest you on a weekend when you're protesting, you're there till Monday. They know. So this is a huge problem we have when lawsuits in this country move much too slowly. So someone lies about you and says like, Ian, you kicked my dog. Okay, go ahead and sue him. The story's out. It will perpetuate. So let's say there's a news website called like the Daily Monster. The Daily Monster. And they write a hit piece about you claiming that you stole someone's cat.
Oh.
And it's completely made up.
Can you imagine?
The most made up and insane story. And, people, so you're like, okay, maybe I should sue for defamation over this. Now, first you got to prove damages. What were the real damages caused by this? Well, what they've done to Project Veritas is they've said his reputation is so destroyed, you can't make his reputation any worse. Thus, we're now allowed to lie and say whatever we want. The court rejected that idea. But they destroy your character so much that eventually you won't be able to fundraise. You won't be able to start a business. You won't be able to get business partners. People will be terrified of you. So you say, I need to sue over these lies. The first thing that happens is the court says, Times v. Sullivan, Ian, you're a public figure. Did they know they were lying, or did their standard in this procedure violate their typical standards? Is my general understanding for Times v. Sullivan. Let's say you get past all of that.
You got to get to actual malice too, right?
Well,
so their defense is, well, we didn't know, therefore they win.
Exactly. That's Times v. Sullivan, basically. As a public figure, it's proving they knew they were lying, or that what they did in this instance violated their typical standards for research. So if you can get past that, bro, it's going to take you $1 million in a year. And then if you can't prove you lost money because of it, they're going to ask you, what are the damages? And you can say reputational. My reputation is my business. And they can say, prove it. There, you lose. So it's not just Times v. Sullivan. It's that the media can lie with impunity and nothing can be done about it. Nothing. And they do it all day. They do it every day. They did it 7 days a week and twice on Sunday when it came to Donald Trump. And what do you do?
So like, if I make a lie like that, do I have protections, or do I need to start a company called like Aardvark News and then just a website, Aardvark News, and then lie about you under Aardvark News, and then I have protection because I made a website called Aardvark News?
All that matters is you can defend yourself from a lawsuit. So when CNN or these big companies, New York Times, have billions of dollars, they will drop an anvil on you, metaphorically. So I hope you're ready to defend yourself. Can you do the same back? Probably not. Probably not. So Project Veritas has Veritas Legal, where they're trying to fight back. That's a problem.
It's this attrition, the war of attrition. When you are plan on losing anyway, you just want to drain the resources of the other person, and you have way more resources, so you can just wait them out. And you may still lose, but they're gonna, like a Pyrrhic victory, they might win on paper, but because it's the percentage of their army has been decimated, they basically lost.
Have you guys ever played poker? Hold'em?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you know Hold'em, if you've got the stack, you can pressure your opponent endlessly and force them out. That's exactly how it is in the real world.
You put them all in every hand.
Every hand. Say, you've got to risk everything you have right now. And I don't. And I can do it again 7 times. Yep. And you're just, man, and they're putting in the blinds, and eventually they're getting eaten away at, and they got to take that risk, and then they take the wrong risk, and they're out.
But you can also win in those situations. And man, does it feel good to take someone's stack.
It does. But if you're the last two in a game of Hold'em, and you've got a smaller stack to the guy's bigger stack,
and the blinds are going up. Yeah,
right.
Eventually the blind is going to be your entire, just a play. You're going to have to bet everything.
Yeah. So this is the challenge.
Hatchet Harry's going to take your dad's bar. You know,
that's right. You're going to have to like throw your wedding ring into the middle of the thing, and then the deed to your house.
Well, I have gems.
But that's the big challenge. As long as the media can just lie and say whatever they want, we stop all of this by not caring what the media says.
I don't know. Exactly. I also think we need to change the laws. It used to be that there was some, responsibility in NBC, CBS, and ABC. That was it. New York Times. Now it's Joey Macaroli. Or I'm not sorry if Joey, if you're out there, I was just making up a name. Can start
Joey
up
Racamole at Aardvark News.
Yeah, he can spin up a news organization and start making
suits
lies.
Being filed now.
Yeah. Sorry, Joey. I love you. Come on the show.
There are clever things you can do, Ian, to your question about starting Aardvark News or whatever. And you probably said Aardvark News because I mentioned Aaron Aardvark earlier in the show.
Oh, that's why.
Exactly.
Yeah, but so Ian, if you start a news organization, they'll still just sue you personally. And you may have a good chance of winning, but you better fork up the $100K for that initial defense.
So if someone at CNN lies about you, you can sue the person that lied directly and not CNN?
Yep.
Is that normally what happens?
You can sue anyone.
Joining them all.
But do you have a better chance of winning against the individual reporter or the organization?
Entirely depends, but you can go after the individual, and then they can try and deflect. Typically what will happen is the institution will offer up the defense for them.
Can you sue the institution and the individual at the same time?
You can. Okay. Yep. So Cassandra Fairbanks, a good friend of ours, she held up the OK hand sign in the White House, which is just the Trump, hey, we're Trump supporters. And a reporter accused her of flashing a white supremacy hand gesture. She said that's not true. It's defamation. She filed a suit. It got thrown out on motion to dismiss, I guess, because they're I think what they said was because she trolls on Twitter, then you can't blame someone for believing you're trolling or something, for falling for a troll or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's just The news organization defended the journalist. The news organization said, we're going to pay for the journalist's defense. So the individuals who work for these big companies with hundreds of millions of dollars can say what they want and they get away with it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, Ian, you were sort of talking about possible legal solutions a moment ago. I think the fact of the matter is, even though something like that would be good in specific instances, and there are really great victory stories. We were discussing Sandman yesterday. We've also been hearing that Rittenhouse is trying to go after some of these networks that lied about him. I think that's fantastic. But ultimately, people are waking up, and there's a reason that they have to write pieces and hit pieces on people like Joe Rogan or Tim, and that's because old media is scared, because people are paying more attention to independent content creators. And one of the reasons for that is because it's insane to get your information from people who pay no price for lying to you.
Walk the dog backwards to the genesis, right? And so the genesis, I think, is what they teach in J school and who decides to be journalists. What's the role of the journalist? Because Jefferson talked about that fourth estate and the importance of information to a free public. Like there can't be one without the other. And so we've gotten away from I want to be a storyteller to I want to be an advocate. I want to advance an agenda. And so again, off air, Aristotle repeatedly said, you give me the storytellers, I'll give you the future. Dude, these guys have studied on what they're trying to do. And a lot of the parts of the machine don't even realize they're parts of the machine, but indeed they are.
The individuals of these companies don't know. What happens is there's a political group and they'll say, how can we get more votes? We need news stories in our favor. Can we fund a news organization? Yes. The news organization then hires people. These people are business people who want to make money. They're told, here's our plan for making money. Hire people who believe X, Y, and Z. They then go and find journalists who have written stories about X, Y, and Z and say, how would you like a higher paying job? They get hired into the company. No one forces them to be cogs in the machine. No one forces them to write lies. They find people who are liars and idiots and hire them and have them do more work.
Or they're not liars. They've drunk the proverbial Kool-Aid. They just genuinely believe it. But like your formative years include your higher ed, right? So University of Missouri and Columbia, these J schools, Syracuse that put out like a disproportionate share. The orthodoxy is in place.
Yeah.
Right? And dude, man, I didn't become comfortable in my dorkiness until I was 25 or later, right? And I am now. Like I am who I am, and I like me. Would you know? These kids are vulnerable. So people are saying this is it, and there's nothing else, and they go, okay, this is it, and there's nothing else.
Yeah, it's funny. You just mentioned a moment ago that some of these people might not necessarily be lying, but they're on the same page as all of their colleagues, and that's unsurprising. But at the same time, there was a great moment from Chomsky, who I'm not a huge fan of, but he made a point when he was on an interview show about how the dominant media culture tends to espouse a specific set of views, and you can expect to hear a certain number of legitimized opinions from them. And the reporter responds to him by asking him, do you believe I'm insincere in my values? And Chomsky said, no, I believe you sincerely hold those. I'm telling you, you wouldn't have this job if you didn't.
Woo, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yep. Yeah, Chomsky also said in the arena of violence, the most brutal wins, and that's not us, when he was condemning Antifa violence in writing. So, the dude lost the plot later on, but he was pretty good back in the day, too. He was a free speech guy.
I mean, he's made some good noises over the years. Again, not my favorite. Not my favorite, but he's made some good noises, yeah.
Like quack and woof. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.